Well, we're back.
My long-awaited return has come.
We're back.
The prodigal son has returned.
Mm-hmm. What are we talking about?
I don't know, Stephen. This is your show. I am Stephen's brother.
Mm-hmm.
I'll withhold my name.
As you all know. You already know.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about many things today. But we're going to start with the secret history.
Mm-hmm.
The secret history. Why don't you
I'll give a
introduce
rundown.
it?
So, when I was in my sophomore year of high school, or junior year, I discovered this wonderful book by Donna Tartt called The Secret History. I read it, and it was probably the only book over like 400 pages I've read in full in 3 years. And I mean, it's spectacular. So I gave it to Stephen, who read it. And if any of you have read it, you would know why.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get into that.
Yeah, I don't take book recommendations very seriously because I have a long list of my own books I want to read. So when people recommend something, I usually ignore them. But this one I did take seriously. Mm-hmm. Also, if you give me the book, then I'm more likely to read it. I'm not going to buy a book you recommend.
That's a bunch of nonsense.
But I could tell the way you said it. I was like, okay, this is going to be for me. I believed you.
So I discovered The Secret History I saw a YouTube video about dark academia.
Oh, yeah.
And it mentioned the book because apparently in this Tumblr, Instagram subculture, I guess Tumblr's not real anymore, is it? No. But Instagram subculture of dark academia, they like worship. It's like the Bible for these little kids who, I mean, I don't get. I mean, I'm wearing, I guess,
a card.
What am I wearing? Like a cable fisherman.
That's pretty dark academia.
That is pretty dark academia.
I follow a lot of dark academia.
Yeah, I mean, they're very interesting. It's a very nice aesthetic, but the aesthetic's dead, so who cares? I mean, I don't know which places of education these people are going to, but...
Yeah, I mean, as Dasha and Anna said in one of the recent episodes, like, you can't actually live the dark academia aesthetic because it's like you would have to go to Oxford or one of these like old school Ivy League universities and, you know, dress in like Hogwarts clothes and just sit in dark corners and read very emotional whatever. Like, it's not really a thing anymore. And it, as I think Dasha was saying, like, it's such a sad nihilistic thing because like it doesn't exist and you can only fantasize about it.
Well, it's nice to fantasize.
It is. I mean, I don't blame people, but
yeah. Well,
so, dark academia,
Secret History, which I don't want to say it's my favorite novel of all time.
It's one of them,
but it's one that I've invested the most time into, and
it's a page turner.
Yeah, it is.
Definitely, you can't put it down.
No. Well, for those of you who don't know, The Secret History, I think it was written in 1990 something.
Oh, wow.
By Donna Tartt, who, interestingly enough, went to Bennington College. Bennington College.
Some crazy things happened there.
Some crazy things did happen at Bennington. And Stephen, who is Bennington College's most famous, in our opinion, professor?
The supreme goddess known as Dr. Palya.
This is correct.
Camille Palya went there. And
I don't think she did, I don't know.
Or taught there.
She taught there.
So you're saying, before we go into the story itself, so you're saying there's this podcast where they're exposing the real like background of secret history.
Yeah. I don't want to put this podcast on blast because, I mean, it's interesting. The content is interesting. It's it's very boring.
But basically, all these famous people were at Bennington and did very wild things, like what happens in the book.
Late stage, decadent. I mean, they were like the last of the aesthetics, you know, like
the decadent aesthetic, yeah.
And a big point of reference in this podcast about Bennington in the 1980s is Brideshead Revisited.
Oh.
Which it was pointed, they all dressed like...
they dressed
yeah,
like
that was like a big point. And that's a big point of the book as well, of The Secret History. Is that the students dress in like these post World War One, like period dress, which is very strange. But anyway, there's these 5 or 6 students, I can't remember how many, in The Secret History, and they're all classic students. And they study under this mysterious, I forget his name.
I don't know.
Julian.
I don't feel like that could fly today.
No.
Because he had way too much of a private relationship with them. It was like cult of personality stuff.
I think his name was Julian.
Yeah, it was
Julian. And in my head, I imagined he looked like Julian Assange.
So the main character, is it written in first person? I forget.
Yes.
So this guy, he's poor?
He was poorer.
Okay, so it's the elite initiating the proletarian kind of character. Like very esoteric kind of rituals, pagan stuff. But I think the big appeal of it is the Dionysian, Greek pagan.
Well, without giving too much away.
Their blood sacrifices.
Yes, there is a very... I mean, it's a direct reference by name to a bacchanal.
Yeah.
In the book, I won't go into detail as to what happens, but that is what happens in the book. So, I mean, the whole book is based on, Dionysian elements.
Yeah, and a lot of perverse sex stuff. Which,
incest,
sodomy. That's not that weird.
No.
But I think the other interesting thing is that Donna Tartt is very Catholic, and
Southern as well.
Southern, and it says a lot about the Dionysian elements of Catholicism. And it speaks to just a lot of these big converts, a lot of the decadent writers like Wilde, Baudelaire, who else? But also, I mean, philosophically speaking, this is a point that a lot of people like George Bataille, Nietzsche make about, the mystical saints having ecstasies like Teresa of Avila. There's this Dionysian, what's the word? This extreme, intense form of pleasure that Catholicism has that maybe more watered down forms of Christianity do away with. So it's intense.
Correct.
It's very intense.
Yeah, I mean, the outward Catholicism was not a big part of the book
there are only little hints.
Yeah, but
there's
whereas in Brideshead, that's a figurehead of the entire story.
I mean, it's Catholic propaganda. Brideshead was Catholic propaganda, but
yeah. So I mean,
Secret History.
So anyway, the school in The Secret History, I think it's called Camden. It was either Camden or Hamden College.
Something.
Because it was based on Bennington College, and a lot of the stories are directly from Miss Tartt's time at. I mean, it was basically like Decadence University.
She is very private.
She is very private. She doesn't give interviews.
I would love to interview her.
Her best interview is with Charlie Rose.
Charlie Rose.
Yeah, but we can't talk about him. So
he got canceled.
Yeah, you didn't know this?
He raped someone.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Add him to the list. So, Secret History. Let's move on to some Red Scare commentary.
Yeah, I mean, they talked about
I'm just surprised that Dasha didn't bring up Secret History. I would be surprised if she didn't know about it. It's up their alley.
I mean, they don't strike me as people who read very often. I hate to...
Anna reads.
Yeah.
Anna reads. Yes. Dasha has not read Lash.
That is true.
No, but in college, like, she read a lot of philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
She's always but like, she's referencing them, but it's not in a BS kind of way. It's like she actually knows like a lot about Judith Butler and Nietzsche and Wittgenstein, all these people.
Well, I, as someone who actually doesn't read that many books, but likes to pretend they do, I sympathize with that point.
Yeah, this is deeply. The theorygram thing. I was telling you about theorygram. A lot of these posters on Instagram will quote these obscure philosophers, but really haven't read them. Mm-hmm. It's performative, you know.
Yes.
But anyway, so the recent episode with Alex Jones. Yeah, that was a crazy move.
It was. I mean,
very risky.
I was talking to someone, and we joked that they could never do another episode again, and it would be A-okay. I mean, it's come full circle, which is very funny.
I think this is why it's so symbolic. That, like, it's the far dirtbag and politically incorrect left, and I mean, I don't know. I guess we'd call him far right. He transcends that, But I think what's funniest though is that Dasha became famous through that InfoWars video, and they were laughing about it together.
Right.
I mean, that's cool.
I mean, truth be told, I don't listen to Steven's podcast as much as I should, so I don't know how much.
It's boring, don't worry.
Well, I don't know how much you talk about Red Scare, but...
I mean, I try not to because it's the, you know...
Right,
it's
the archetype.
So predictable that I would do that, but... You know, maybe
but this is, I mean, in terms of like culture, at least online, internet, young people culture, that's like, this is a big deal.
It is though. I mean, it's opened the door. A lot of people who've had these thoughts for a while now have license to talk about it, but also there's like a cultural reference point for us to be like, oh, like even you have said, you've mentioned it in your classes, and like now it's a thing, like, people who listen to Red Scare. And it validates, like, you can be critical of the status quo without having to be like an extremist or a lunatic. Like, I think that's why it's so validating.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I was uncomfortable listening to it.
I don't think anything he said was false.
No, I'm not.
Like, I don't see any errors.
I mean,
I do think a lot of it, he makes these broad sweeping assumptions about the elites, the people in power. I happen to think he's correct. Now, might he be going a little too far with certain assumptions making? Sure, but I'm just inclined to be like, well, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree. I think it's funny that he's been vindicated over the years more and more.
Yeah.
As he's been kicked off the internet.
But I think the big thing, though, is that, like, he's written off as this far-right crazy lunatic. But the fact that a lot of people on the left, or people who aren't really right-wing, they see that, okay, the power of the elites, like... this is a real thing. Now, whether it's all conspiratorial and they're planning to take over the world and are in cahoots with Satan, I don't know. But I think both left and right are starting to see, okay, there's something up, and we can all agree on that.
Yeah, I mean, listening to him, I think most of the things he says are right. He just misses like the details and how he says it. And, like, I mean, the most famous example or the most famous clip of Alex Jones is he goes, they're putting chemicals in the water. They're just turning the friggin' frogs gay. But like, that was true. That was
they're turning frogs gay.
No, if you go online and look up, there's a whole video about this that he was right. He wasn't directly right, but they were putting chemicals in the water that were changing frogs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the fact that we can call into question these narratives about people in power, whether it's government, entertainment industry, healthcare, that they all are people of goodwill who are telling us the truth, and we can totally trust everything they say. Like, that's becoming less and less credible as time goes on.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people who aren't... I think more and more people who don't ascribe to a political party or political beliefs see that. And, you know, the joke is like, all centrists, you know, have no... volition, or, you know, don't want to declare a party because they're cowards. But people who are in the middle are the ones, I mean, at least now in our modern discourse, are the ones who see things with a very clear and viewpoint, at least as I see it.
Yeah, what's becoming, I guess the status quo has always been like, oh, all the sides are corrupt, all the sides have errors, but you have to pick the lesser of two evils. You got to work within the system if you want to make a difference. And I think that kind of trope is becoming less and less credible because, like, look at the Biden-Trump thing. Most people are like, oh, Trump is evil, Biden sucks too, but at least Biden's not Trump, so let's throw support behind him. And it's like, sure, I get that logic, but then at the end of the day, you have to compromise yourself very much to support Biden. And a lot of us, especially a lot of young people, don't want to compromise ourselves for the sake of settling for the lesser of two evils. Like, I think we want more than just that. Because, like, if you compromise and say, oh yeah, well, Biden's better than Trump, you're still losing so much of your integrity. And to desire something beyond these two on the binary, it's really idealistic. Like, it's very utopian, but for me, at least, I rather throw my support behind a utopian ideal that's never going to happen rather than compromise myself and be like, oh, well, we got to make some changes within the system. Like, that's part of it's my temperament, part of it's being a millennial. Maybe I'm just too privileged to care about reality, but I just don't feel comfortable saying like, oh, well, Democrats are okay, I guess.
This isn't exactly Lash's point in the culture of narcissism, but the subtitle, you know, American Age of Diminishing Expectations. I mean, I think we have a collective, just completely destroyed set of expectations for what society and life should be. I mean, think about it. When you go out, right, you buy something at the store. I mean, this is, you know, like, sound like a real boomer here, but when you go to a restaurant or store and you get dinner or you buy something, the quality of what you're getting is more often than not really subpar. But because that's the status quo, we don't challenge it anymore.
Mediocrity.
Yeah, we really are at like in an age of mediocrity. I mean, you know,
I don't think we really believe in anything.
No,
we believe in things, but very few of us are willing to die for anything. And I don't just mean like die for some ideal, but like when it comes to our work, a lot of us don't find our work valuable enough to really put our whole effort in, and like whether if it's you're making a product to really make a good quality product. Or
that, and it's all shipped to China. And
that too. The means of I think it's partially because like we don't have a relationship with the means of production anymore. Like everything's just all abstract, so like why nobody really cares.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is like the cult, the American cult of work and not labor as much, but work, and you know, doing work, the hustle culture. I mean, it's been proved to be completely false and devoid of anything meaningful. So I think a lot of people are just like, well, who cares at this point?
Yeah, I'm thinking of, so a couple episodes ago, we had Bill Kavanaugh on, who wrote a lot about Amazon and what's wrong with it. And one thing he was saying about late phase capitalism is that we work like dogs so that we can buy things and live a lifestyle that we don't really need. Whereas it used to be that like you worked just enough so you can buy the minimum, and then like your need for happiness was filled through things that aren't like consumer experiences, like being with family, religious kind of whatever, it's just because our happiness is predicated on the consumption of goods and experiences. Now we have to work above and beyond so that we can purchase it, and then we're miserable because we're not really made to work like wild animals.
Yeah.
I think there's such a thing as like, I mean, as humans, we worship something. That's just an anthropological reality. Now, if it's a religious thing we worship, that's another story.
Yeah, but at first I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Everybody.
But then the more and more, I mean, I don't know if this is a COVID thing or what, people worship nothing. More and more.
I think you're right. I think we numb that need to worship, but it goes somewhere. It's just dulled down.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the cult of social justice. People worship
people,
like
yes,
CRT.
That, but also some
but they don't
people,
really worship it. They could, they're not dying by the sword,
The other thing I would say, though, to your point that like people aren't worshiping anything, I think a lot of people worship distraction and entertainment.
Yeah.
So like, there are people who worship this idea of justice, but many people who are apathetic, they worship distraction, whether it's scrolling through Instagram, watching Netflix, getting high.
That's true.
So I do stand by this idea that we're all going to worship something. But I want to go back to Red Scare for a moment. The fact that Dasha is getting all this mainstream attention because of Succession, there's the New York Magazine, Vulture. What's going to happen as a result of this?
Well, as we know, typically women can't get canceled. I'm kidding.
Well,
Roseanne, there's some women's
Megyn Kelly did.
Oh yeah, that's
no one
true.
even likes her. She's
she's a loser. I don't know. I'm of the opinion that if enough people like you, you can actually get canceled.
Yeah, like Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle will never get canceled.
No, you can't do it.
Going on to our next topic, Morrissey will never ever get canceled.
Yeah, you have to educate me because I don't listen to anything.
We'll do a deep dive.
Okay, in a moment.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of my questions about the whole Dasha getting attention, I wonder if that's going to allow the Red Scare discourse to become more mainstream.
I mean, it's always mainstream though. The topics are the conclusions aren't.
No, but I'm saying like to talk like dirtbag leftist kind of ideas and. I mean, I can't go. You can't go into your class and just start spouting off. Anna Khachyan said.
Yeah.
I can't do that. It's a niche thing.
Well, I think part of it is that I mean, I don't know. I think, and we're putting them on a pedestal here.
You kind of have to.
Yeah, but
it's a big deal.
It is. I mean, I think they're both very reasonable people at the end of the day. I think that the appeal of the podcast and the reason we're talking about it is because it's interesting enough that people listen week in and week out.
Yeah, I mean, it's morally very corrupt what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's like, why do we watch movies? Why do we watch, why do we play Call of Duty and shoot each other on a video game?
The good thing about them is that they don't claim to be something they're not. Like, they know that like their kind of decadent take is amoral. And that's why I'm okay with listening to it. Like, I know I have to listen to it with a grain of salt because then I really do become like an ironic asshole who doesn't care about anything. But I still think it's worth, like, I still respect them.
I mean, I respect them. I mean, the dynamic I respect more than anything. I mean, Anna is now a mother and that's her perspective, and Dasha's becoming a mainstream actress, and that's I mean, the dynamic is very interesting to me.
The motherhood thing is a big deal,
yeah,
because like I know a lot of, I guess you can say, trad women who have babies and like really feel validated by Anna, because like motherhood really, as much as our culture shits on it, it is like the most empowering thing. That a woman, one of the most empowering things a woman can experience that we will never experience as men.
Well, maybe.
Well,
you never know.
I don't really want to have a baby.
No. All the transhumanist stuff. You never know.
Transhumanism. Anyway, let's go on to Yay.
Yay. Get it right, Steven.
Yay.
Well, anyway, we're recording this the day that Virgil Abloh died of cancer.
I don't really know who this is. I'm ignorant.
He was creative director of Off-White, certain sections of Louis Vuitton. Well, anyway.
Yeah, okay.
He's very big in the rap, music, artists, generally pop culture scene, and he died of cancer today at 41.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Rescue Scott and Pache.
But as many say, he was Kanye's apprentice, and we can talk about Kanye a little bit. I mean, he mentioned him many times in the what soon to be infamous interview.
Yeah, so that was Drink Champs.
Drink Champs. I had never heard of that until.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets killed for what he said.
Oh, I think that's an exaggeration.
It's happened before. Prince, Michael, Whitney, Amy, Lauren, not yet. But anyway. No, so what I find most interesting is the effect this interview is having, because I know people who, for lack of a better term, are very woke, people of color, who, ascribe to this mainstream social justice discourse, but didn't disagree with anything he said, because as much as he's challenging that discourse and he's like saying the Democratic Party is using black people, I think people are now at the point where they could be like, well, he's politically incorrect, but he's not wrong. Like, nothing he said was false.
No, and I watched all 3 hours in one day.
Yeah, me too. I listened to it twice.
Yeah, it was a little spooky.
It was.
Because, I mean, this is like probably the biggest star in the world. Obviously there are greater in terms of popularity. I mean, Drake, for example.
Drake doesn't stand for anything.
No, but exactly. There's no one that transcends like fashion,
Yeah.
I mean, Drake doesn't permeate culture the same way Kanye does. So it was interesting seeing someone like that.
I don't even think Drake is that talented.
No, of course not. Maybe his early albums.
His rapping really is not even that awesome. No. He's like a good business guy. He's good at building up his persona.
Very good businessman. His early albums weren't terrible.
I liked Thank Me Later. I used to listen to that.
What was the other one? Take Care. That was a good one.
He has some good like mainstream pop radio hits. Good production. But what I find interesting about Kanye is that he's talking about uplifting the black community in a way that challenges the kind of mainstream liberal left discourse. And many people want to dismiss him as an Uncle Tom because he wore the MAGA hat. Morally questionable, whatever. Yeah. But he had a point. He was trying to say, as a black man, I'm free to think on my own and not have to be co-opted by Democrats who claim to care about black communities, but really just want to make black people become self-serving elitists while the rest...
Or a vote.
Get a vote, but but like the kinds of benefits or opportunities they offer to people of color really is only to make them one of the elites rather than uplifting the black communities as a whole. Yeah. And I think that's his whole narrative. It's about building up community, family, black fathers, providing resources so that you can live a meaningful life where you are rather than like becoming one of the elites. Like, you can throw money at your old community so you feel better about yourself, but like uplifting from the bottom up, not the top down.
Yeah. I mean, and listen, I'm not as chatty as some other people.
Some people.
But his stuff about family is very profound.
I mean, he's not wrong. That's the thing. But it's a matter of racism that black families, black fathers are targeted. And because that's how a community stops thriving when families break down.
When you reject tradition, and
it's not just tradition; it's that like having roots, having a place.
Well, yeah,
to
that's
go
what I'm
that
saying. You reject your cultural
traditions. It's financial first of all, economic, that you need community so that let's say you're going through a hard time, someone helps you. But it's also existential, that like you have a source of meaning in belonging to a people, to a history, to a faith, whatever. So it's not just like, that's why it's hard to dismiss it as like, it's trad, it's conservative. It's just human.
It's very humanist.
Yeah, I mean, humanist in a real sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Secular humanist. But also the fact that like he keeps calling out the whole abortion thing, it makes you think, like, the fact that 50% of black deaths happened before you're born. The idea that the whole abortion rights narrative is about empowerment, that's the thing. It's like, sure, if you want to have the right to abortion, have the right, but don't frame it as something it's not. It's not something empowering. It's something that
I think the greatest sin, for lack of a better term, of that whole discourse is making it seem as though it's very easy to do something like that.
And it's strange though, because when you look at the beginning, when the Democratic Party supported Roe v. Wade, the line was, let's keep abortion rare, safe.
Yeah.
Like rare and safe.
It should be
but now it's like, this is a great thing because it allows women to have a future.
I think a part of that is like, because our living conditions are increasingly worse every year.
Yeah.
To make people feel as though abortion is a good, not a good thing, but an okay thing to do.
Empowering.
It's empowering on some level. I think it's a cop-out for the conditions we live in. I mean, because, listen, in an ideal world, abortion is an option for the rare circumstance, but not no one should be going to get an abortion.
But it's also like
because the financial instability is too much. That's a really sad prospect for a lot of people of color,
But it's also sad that like women are pressured to be like, yes, I feel good now and I feel empowered. And really, you can debate whether it should be legal, whatever, but it's not a happy experience. It's like, it's very sad and heavy.
I agree, but I disagree that I think some people, some like loony, like, SJW types, maybe painted as empowering, but I don't know that that's across the board. I think it's actually there's no emotion attached with it at all, and that's
most women I know who have an abortion, it does come later. It's not always immediate.
Of course, but I'm saying that the discourse that surrounds it has very little emotion attached to it.
Anyway, not to harp on Red Scare, but when Anna opened up about her abortions, that was like, whoa, that was very. I thought it was powerful.
It was.
It was very raw.
Surprising. I was in. Yeah. Well, anyway, so that's 30 minutes. I think we should move on to the latter half.
Okay, so let's say a few words about James Dean.
Okay.
I haven't really talked about him much on here yet, but
that's a crime.
Yeah. So James Dean, what do you want to say about him?
James Dean. I mean, probably one of the more influential figures in my life.
Mm-hmm. Why?
His story, I know people totally romanticize it now, and I guess I'm guilty of that, but his story is like a modern day Greek tragedy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's, I don't know, it's really profound to me that, I mean, for all intents and purposes, he was not happy with the fame and the fortune, and he never even lived to see it, really.
He had a death wish.
Yeah.
Like this fascination with mortality.
The cars and I mean, the car he bought, the little bastard or whatever it's called, had a history of like being, and the week before he died, someone told him, you're going to die in that car.
Yeah.
And then, lo and behold.
Yeah, so I think in terms of like the Greek tragedy, I see a lot of cult of Adonis, so like the male youth who, I guess the whole thing behind Adonis, and Wilde was big on this, that, you recognize that the young male, when he's between childhood and adulthood, it's this kind of phase where, a phase of innocence, preparing for adulthood and for the hardships, the corruption that comes with it. But you want to hold on to this youthfulness, the beauty, but inevitably we know it's going to end. And like Adonis gets killed.
That's my thing is, I think that playfulness, that boyishness never died in James Dean, ever.
Keeping the youth immortal.
I mean, there's multiple instances that I can think of. The scene in
Rebel?
No.
East of Eden?
East of Eden.
Yeah.
Where he falls... I can't remember the father's name, but he's trying to give him money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And as the story goes, that was not in the script. He wasn't. I mean, Cal falls on his father and like breaks down crying, and then runs out and like through the screen door. But from my understanding, that was not in the script, and he just
yeah. You see that in the James Franco movie. I think it's the whole like the disillusionment with authority. You see him pull back and forth between this desire for a father, but also being disillusioned with authority because it's like his experience of fatherhood is this Midwestern, very dryly masculine.
He doesn't have a mother.
The mother thing. That's very Freudian. But I think it's a bigger commentary on how American puritanical authority figures don't have anything compelling. It's just like authority without roots, and it just leaves young people feeling empty, and like either you become a rebel or you search for an authority that is grounded in something substantial.
I mean, Rebel Without a Cause, like unironically, is one of my favorite movies. And we watched a clip of it in a class of mine, and it was the scene where he kicks his foot through the painting and throws himself through the door. And like, I don't know if it's just the time or whatever has passed, but a lot of people started laughing at it in my class, and I don't blame them. And it is kind of funny, detached from the greater scheme of the film. But it was just interesting to me because a lot of people look at that movie and laugh and be like, it's silly. It's, it's frivolous. I really don't think so.
So was he an actual homosexual, or did he just do it out of rebellion?
Here's the thing. A lot of I think this is a modern thing. I mean, it's documented that he was most likely at least bisexual in our modern.
That can mean a lot of things. But like, do you think he had a genetic predisposition, like he was born that way?
I don't know. That's a slippery slope. I don't want to make assumptions.
I think it's like the Freudian complex that the father was distant, so the mother filled in the blanks.
Well, the Marlon Brando thing is. I mean,
Marlon Brando used to put out cigarettes in him. He was like, it was this weird paternal abusive...
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, it was a very stand-in father.
But I think a lot of it was just he wanted to rebel.
Yeah,
he wanted to fill a father wound.
Yeah.
Who was the young guy, the kid that looked up to him in the movie?
Sal Mineo.
Yeah.
Also, he was actually a guy.
Oh yeah, obviously.
But I mean, listen, a lot of like posthumous stuff about James Dean, especially in like the internet culture, is like James Dean being a gay icon, and it's like, all right. I get it. I mean, that's just how we talk about things. But I mean, there's a lot of scenes, particularly, I mean, in Rebel Without a Cause with Sal Mineo, who looked up to him very deeply in real life as well, who also suffered a very early death.
He was in love with Pierangeli, though.
Who's the one?
The Italian girl.
Oh, I don't.
He was in love with her.
But there's a lot of scenes of like screen tests with James Dean. I don't know if you've seen any of them. Where he's like being very playful with like young men.
Yeah. All right.
Well, anyway, I mean, people like to paint him as like an icon, a gay icon.
I think it's simplistic.
I don't think it's that simple.
Do you think?
I think his complexity is why he is very important to me, and you as well.
Do you think James Franco is the next James Dean?
I think he could have been.
I used to be very intrigued by James Franco. When I was
actually Palo Alto.
You read it?
I didn't read it, but I watched it.
I read it. I went to the book signing when I started undergrad. I think he's very dark and sadistic, but fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a great actor.
I liked when he was in the James Dean movie. He did a pretty good job.
I don't think I've ever seen it in full, but people make the comparison ever since he was, is this James Franco gay? And James Franco, he's a sadist. Sadist for
dark,
very dark. There's stuff about, I don't know if you don't know this, but with Lana Del Rey, he like wrote a poem about her.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was like a little weird.
Yeah, something's. I used to really follow like everything he did for a couple months.
But I was a big fan. I know a lot of people don't like it, but
that was Emma Roberts.
Yeah.
I liked
it.
Who was the guy?
Oh, I don't know.
It wasn't Timmy.
No.
This was before Timmy.
This was pre-Timmy. But yeah, he was. I don't know. He's like quasi canceled in today's world. I don't know that he'll really get any more jobs doing anything significant. Well, anyway. So going off of James Dean, Oscar Wilde, this brings me to the most important figure in my life outside of my immediate family.
Yes.
Stephen Patrick Morrissey.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest songwriter, musician. He's not a musician, but greatest singer. Greatest songwriter. Greatest.
I don't know anything about him.
So
I know
Stephen knows nothing about.
I know Dasha posts about him. I have friends who talk about him, but it's so there's like a big Wilde influence.
Yes, well,
decadence.
So before he was Morrissey and the lead singer of the Smiths, he wrote a book about James Dean.
He wrote a book.
Yes.
Oh wow. Okay.
Called James Dean Is Not Dead. I don't own it because it's very rare.
Oh.
But that was he
really?
Yes.
Oh.
You look it up. So that is the connection, at least immediately. Morrissey saw a lot of James Dean in himself and his life in Manchester. But anyway, so then he becomes the lead singer of the Smiths. He writes all these songs and.
What kind of music is what do we call this?
We'd call it indie, but it was pop. It's pop, yeah.
$226 for this book.
Yeah, it's expensive.
I also know that he references other decadent authors like Baudelaire, like Huysmans. Against nature.
There's the song "Cemetery Gates," which is it's spelled cemetery, which is kind of like the joke that it's spelled wrong because it's about literary giants. Like the lyric is like it's like something. Keats and Yeats are on your side while the weird lover Wilde is on mine.
Okay.
Which is anyway. So that's like a direct reference to Wilde, but that's like Wilde and the aesthetic, the decadence is a big part of the Smiths and Morrissey. A lot of people even looked at The Boy with the Thorn in His Side, which is the name of another Smith song, and thought, oh, it's about Oscar Wilde.
Was he raised Catholic?
Yes.
He's Irish. Irish
Catholic.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yes, there's a big part in his autobiography about Catholicism. And
does he have like some esteem for Catholicism, or is he like,
yes, great reverence?
Bad.
Great reference.
Yeah,
I've seen him. I've seen him in concert and seen video, and in his more recent stuff in the last 10 years, he does typically wear a rosary on his belt loop.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
As you're listening to me speak about it, the amount of information I know is kind of absurd.
Well,
yeah,
I do that. Well, so he's a sodomite. He's bisexual.
Well,
he's ambiguous.
Well, you'll find this funny. The great legacy of Morrissey is that he was a notorious celibate.
Oh, okay, he's one of those.
Yes.
He's an Andy Warhol.
Yes, and that he was this big rock star who sang about sex and love.
Yeah, okay.
But he was celibate.
Yeah, that's a true artist. You get that.
that like later on people started to question that because there was like some people.
I'm sure he fooled around.
Yeah, but there was never.
That's the same as Warhol.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of his songs,
That's really interesting.
especially his solo songs. There's like songs called like "We'll Never Marry," like a lot of stuff about like how he's on his own, and that's it.
Also, Palia.
Yeah, I mean, it's all very similar.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, I mean, what most people know Morrissey for today is that he's like this anti-woke, racist.
Oh, that's his MO?
Anti-immigrant.
Politically incorrect.
Which
his
is
music or
no.
commentary?
I mean, both. I mean, he has a really funny song called "The National Front Disco."
Oh.
Which is very funny.
Is he like actually racist?
No.
He just doesn't say.
No, he just doesn't follow the.
Okay.
You know,
because they're.
I mean, he said like obnoxious things that. Mm-hmm. I mean, because the big thing about Morrissey is that he's like a staunch vegan, animal rights person. So like, he says a lot of stuff about China and their like transgressions. And a lot of people he says things that could be
Asian hate. Is he hating Asians?
He's not hating Asians. I think a lot of people would say he is, but I don't. If any, I don't know. If you have anyone who's a fan of his and knows what his thing is that you would know he's not actually racist. He just says obnoxious things that a lot of people would, a lot of anti-immigrant stuff people think is like. I don't know. I'm of the opinion that he's a little conservative politically, and people like.
In what sense of the word?
Socially.
Okay. Because the whole immigrant thing, you can go many ways about that.
Yeah, well, it's a lot about like English.
Yeah, that's a whole other.
It's not in the. People view it in the American
sense.
Brexit
stuff.
It's kind of, but not really. It's complicated.
All right, I don't really understand the Brexit thing anyway.
Yeah, it's for us. Because dumb Americans.
I distinguish between people who value like national pride and having some secure borders versus someone who's like, I hate anyone who's not like real. Blood
No. That's not what
purity
shit.
No.
Well, first of all, he's a child of immigrants, Irish immigrants at that, who are.
Is he dead?
No.
How old is he? 70?
No. 2 years younger than our father.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I really don't know anything.
Yeah.
I don't listen to anything that's not rhythmically driven.
Well, okay. Now to connect it to your host, Steven, of this podcast. Morrissey is known for having a totally wild, fanatical Mexican audience.
Yeah. Yes. But, Hispanic people really like rock. The ones I know really like rock.
And a big part of it is that, they have the shrines of they beatify Morrissey and a lot of, especially in LA, but in Mexico
more so than other rockers.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow. Because I know Mexicans who are really into him,
yes.
but I just know in general like Spanish rock is a thing.
Yeah, but a lot of people connect his songs to like ranchera style.
Oh, so that's that connection.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so they have a great affinity for Morrissey.
Wow.
Which is funny because I think it's
Mexico.
The songs are in English, obviously. He has a song called Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow.
Which is funny. It's like he goes, "I went for a walk in Mexico, and I could smell like the power plant, the Texas, like it's funny. The lyric's funny. But yeah, so that there's so much.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of culture, Morrissey, I guess his cultural significance is dwindling more and more.
Oh.
But in England during the 90s, early 90s, late 80s, they were probably the biggest thing.
Oh wow.
They've been called the greatest band of all time.
So when you talk to people your age, what's the reaction when you say
this? The general consensus is like, oh, Morrissey, he's like a far right.
Oh, that's the consensus?
Yeah, and a lot of people are like, oh, F Morrissey. I like the
Oh.
Smiths, which was the band, but I don't like Morrissey.
But in general, people respect him as a musician.
Yeah,
or the
as a
Smiths.
musician, yes. As a person, a lot of people don't like him. I disagree. I think what made the Smiths and Morrissey so great is like the aesthetic of all of it. I mean, I have to show you some of their live video, but like you talk about artifice a lot.
Yeah. Camp.
There's a lot of there was a period where he had like fake cuts on his face because he was. The single at the time was called Boxers, and it was about boxers, and it was like
Interesting.
And there's another time he had like, and he would paint stuff on his chest sometimes. Like there was one time, it's something that they have a song called William Is Really Nothing, and it said, and there's a line of the song. It's like, if you like to marry me, if you like, you can buy the ring, blah 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 blah. So anyway, like he put "marry me" on his chest, or there's a photo shoot where he has the word "fake" like drawn on his neck. But it's very, very, very campy, and I think that's what makes them great. I mean, all their album covers. I could talk about this for hours, but James Dean, Oscar Wilde.
Yeah.
I mean, James Baldwin as well.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, there's a controversy.
He's not
I
very
mean,
campy.
one of the controversies of the early 2010s with Morrissey is that he put out a T-shirt with James Baldwin's face on it that said, because there's a lyric in a Smith song called Unlovable that goes, I wear black on the outside because black is how I feel on the inside.
Oh.
Which, I mean,
wow.
and he put that on a T-shirt, which kind of funny, but...
Wow. All right. James Baldwin is not camp.
No,
way
very
too
Protestant.
Very puritanical, very moralistic. No. Yeah, my relationship with him has changed. I'll always respect him, but I'm just like, you're such a whiny Protestant moralist. Like, always wants to condemn people. Yeah. Ooh. Anyway, let's wrap things up.
Yeah, it's good with me.
So
this was like
that.
Nick's podcast.
Yeah, it was about time though. We've been waiting.
Yeah, I mean, apparently I'm a big hit.
Yeah, everybody was asking for him to come back, so here he is. He'll be back for more.
Yes,
inshallah.
Is that your outro? Inshallah.
No, I have to say the outro. So we hope you've been sufficiently scandalized. The end.